So like you really need to find somebody who's able to optimize for experimentation, adaptability, resilience. And for that, it's really the person, not the company that they're building. Theoretically, the person will be able to figure it out and iterate and improve and find the right strategy and go to market and make an awesome business.
And welcome back. We have Cole Zucker joining on the podcast. Cole, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Oh yeah, happy to be here.
First question, who's Cole?
I am a 42, which is kind of crazy to say that my birthday is coming soon. It's amazing how, you blink and all of a sudden you're relatively old. And I am originally from New Jersey, but I live in Los Angeles. I am an entrepreneur and building a really interesting business. At least I personally think it's an interesting business, trying to tackle the world of insole and bringing it to run so that it's not just the people who are kind of in the know, which is a relatively small niche, but trying to really introduce it to the greater running audience and world as a whole.
How did you find running, or how did running find you?
Yeah, so I've been a runner all my life. I do remember when I was in, call it 7th grade, I saw a cross country coach from high school. He came to our middle school and we locked eyes, Don Witzig. May he rest in peace. And he said, "You have a runner's body. Would you like to become an athlete for my team?" And my family, many people, my uncle, all ran cross country. So it was somewhat my intention to join the squad. He just gave me the opportunity to do so and immediately fell in love. I moved to China after college. I ended up running in high school and in college as well. I was okay, not great, but I finished and was on the squad. As far as when I graduated from college, I moved to Shanghai, and that became a challenge in terms of maintaining my running lifestyle, just because at the time the weather and the pollution was somewhat challenging for my lungs. And so I took off, call it like 7 years. But when I moved back to the US, I realized that I am addicted to running. And so I kind of call it later in life, early 30s, really got back into running. And so over the last decade, it's kind of taken over my life and has become a critical piece to, my identity.
Amazing. What brought you to Shanghai?
I thought it'd be really cool to move there. When I was in high school, my grandfather said China's the future. And I remember very distinctly the day that China entered the WTO. That was 2001. I got a call from my grandfather. He said, "Hey, this is the beginning of what's going to be the China century. When people look back at 2100, they're going to say that was the beginning. That was it. And we're living history right now. So you need to go to China. You should move there." My mom was beside herself. She said, "No way." But it worked out. I ended up, unfortunately or fortunately, not listening to my mom, and spent a good 7 years really growing and becoming the person I am today.
Shocking you were able to overcome the Jewish mother guilt of moving across the world.
I mean, she said 2 years is the max. That was the deal. And 2 years came and went, and it started to, kind of roll into a much longer period of time. And, I'm sorry, Mom, but in the end of the day, it all worked out. So it was a great and wild ride.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about your professional background. Walk me through what that journey has looked like that's led you to where you are today.
When I moved to Shanghai, I was really looking for an interesting opportunity, or I should say a business to start. I had all these wacky ideas. I threw a bunch of crap at the wall, hoping something would stick. I had this idea around a college magazine newsletter very early on, and ended up going to a bunch of universities all across Shanghai, trying to get my idea or put my idea in motion. That didn't work. I had this other idea about magnesium wall panels, and I actually flew to Germany to attend a trade show. Unfortunately, it was a non-English speaking trade show. And so all of my materials were in English, and the contractors that were there were quite local and were absolutely not interested at all. So I had all these ideas around, how to start a business, and they're all zany. Ultimately, none of them worked out. But I was working in the lighting industry, which was kind of ironic or a coincidence because it didn't occur to me that the opportunity to start a business was actually within the lighting industry. At the time, everything was transitioning from, call it, halogen and fluorescent and legacy lighting technologies, and everything was becoming LED. And so it just seemed like it was right for disruption, and that there would be great opportunities to build a LED lighting brand, because at the time there were, GE and Philips and, major manufacturers, but everybody was transitioning into LED. Whereas I felt like, okay, there aren't any pure play LED brands that are like cool or interesting or fun, high energy. And so it seemed like there was opportunity in the market to start one.
So you had this light bulb moment, led to
It
Green
was literally a
Creative.
light bulb moment. That's exactly right.
You ran that for 11 years?
Just about, yeah. So we had very little money to start the business. We really thought the company wasn't going to last more than a year. At least I didn't. I did have my resume in my drawer, just in case I needed to polish it and kind of get back into the job hunt again. There was a lot of rejection when we first started the company. To expect, everyone said, Philips and GE were going to destroy us, and that nobody would buy our products, which was the truth for at least the first, call it, year or two. But then we started to really understand by listening to the market, developing solid relationships, making sure that people recognized that we weren't going anywhere, that it was either they could say no, which was effectively a not now, or they could try to ignore us for as long as possible. But at some point, they were going to see that their competitors were using our product. So really kind of flooded the zone. And that was one of the keys to our success.
You talked about listening to customers and listening to feedback. One of the topics I like to come back to is understanding signal versus noise. How have you been able to distinguish between the two in listening to feedback that matters versus somebody who's just running their mouth and isn't ever going to buy something, or it doesn't really matter in their buying process?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that when it comes to signal versus noise, a lot of it is optimizing for experimentation, because in the beginning, maybe you have been working in an industry for a while and you feel like you're highly knowledgeable in it. But when you're doing your own thing, when it's your, call it, your own money and time on the line, the key is really about figuring out every single data point you can possibly accumulate, and then being able to synthesize that and experimenting, meaning A/B testing, trying different opportunities, and really kind of taking advantage of what's working and then doubling down. The reason I mention that is because a lot of entrepreneurs, what ends up happening is that they have a thesis in terms of what they think is going to work. They see a little bit of signal, or they see a little bit of noise, I should say, and they believe that's the future. And so they double down, and they really just effectively go all in on the strategy that they think is the right one. But ultimately, they put themselves in a situation where they can't back out. One of the unfortunate things that I see happening a lot is that they end up running out of money, and then going bankrupt just because they didn't have the runway to be able to get through the product market fit phase of the business. And so kind of going back to signal versus noise, I would say being able to just optimize for trying as many experiments and seeing what's working. That's the key. And I can give you an example. I mean, when we first started our business, we thought, okay, well, it seems like some of the customers are enjoying our products. We were making a product that I would say is very premium. We wanted to be like the Ferrari of the market. This is the LED lighting company. When we saw all the volumes that were happening in the back end with like product that was of inferior quality. So let's say we were trying to be Ferrari, but then we saw lots and lots of Toyotas selling every single day. We thought, okay, well, we can also make that product. We can also sell those products directly to the customers. They seem to be enjoying our Ferraris, but let's just see if we can sell both. And we ended up developing a product which we called like our B line, which was ultimately specific for customers that couldn't afford or wanted to also offer an alternative that was cheaper to their customer base. However, well, the first few sales once we launched the product were fantastic. We really saw a lot of interest, and that made us say, well, given that we've sold through a decent amount in a very short period of time, we should become cowboys and just go for broke. And we ended up buying an incredible amount of inventory, actually millions of dollars of inventory, which was really crazy at the time. You could say we were like cowboys. And we brought in the goods. They arrived in our warehouse in the US, and all of a sudden the sales stopped. And we were wondering what was happening. And we also tried to figure out, what are we going to do? Because we had some serious cash flow issues, and we obviously had to make payroll and pay our vendors. So yeah, that was a situation where we almost killed ourselves because we saw this noise and signal very early on, which ultimately turned out to be wrong. And so I would say having the most optimal exposure as it relates to being able to try different experiments is really the key. And the thing that you want to really stay away from is really kind of going all in on any of them until you fully fleshed out the plan.
Makes sense. So you spent about 12 years doing that. At what point did you decide it was time for a change?
Well, we ended up selling the business right before COVID. So it was a very fortunate time. And the reason why we ultimately felt like it was time for a change was because we had spent called a good 7-8 years building the company up by ourselves. And it did feel like we had reached a point where we had done everything we wanted to do. But to get to that next stage of growth, it would require a serious amount of capital and also a little bit more risk, just because we would have to get bigger warehouses, make more capital investments in the team. And it just seemed like that was the best time, that inflection, to really kind of allow a capital partner to come in to help us get to that next level. So that was ultimately the reason we determined that it was time to sell and to effectively do something else.
What does that process look like? How do you begin to entertain offers? Did you have people coming to you, or was it through a broker? What was tactically, how did you make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about selling a business. I mean, the ideal situation is that you one day are unprompted by a very large company who says, we want your IP and your business and we'll pay you a ton of money, and we're good, say goodbye, and you hand over the keys and you go about your lovely life. That's not really realistic, because most of the times that actually doesn't really happen. We ultimately decided to hire a banker who would run a full-on process. And so we had a thesis around who would potentially buy the company. We then had the bankers go out to the market and sell us to potential buyers. We then met with a ton of different companies, firms, financial firms, and some strategics, and kind of interviewed them, just because we knew we would be staying on. So it was really important that we had to find the right partner. And so there were a few companies in the mix that we wanted to work with, and we decided to move forward with one. They had a combination of a really solid offer. The risk to close, we also thought, was relatively small. That's one of the things that when you're selling a business, you don't really pay attention to. It's not so much what's the best offer I can get, but in a lot of cases, there's a lot going on under the hood. They need to work with lenders and debt providers to make sure that they have enough cash to close. There are investment committees within these firms, so they need to all vote and be able to move forward as well. So just because somebody gives you a great offer doesn't mean that they're going to be able to close the deal. And so you have to kind of balance and weigh who's giving me the best offers / who can also close and actually purchase the company. And then the other thing is, they were great people, and they a track record for growing fantastic businesses in the past. So we felt like the company would be in good hands with them as the new steward.
So they close, they buy the business, and you start your own family office, it looks like.
Yep.
Is that the path there?
I took some time off. I tried to qualify for Olympic trials. The sub 219 was one of my goals. Didn't happen, but I tried. And then I was kind of figuring out what's next. And so ultimately worked with a lot of entrepreneurs to invest in their businesses, invest alongside them, and help to grow. And that's exciting too, just because, it's one thing just to invest, but it's another thing to really get involved with other people's businesses and, be a sounding board and help to advise. However, as I mentioned, I'm a runner and I really wanted to do something in the run industry. Lighting is one of those things. It's a really wonderful industry. There's great people in it, but I never really identified as call it a lighting entrepreneur. I really just saw myself as an entrepreneur. And so I wasn't necessarily looking to go back into that industry. I started the business because I really saw the opportunity at hand to build a brand in the lighting space. And so ultimately I felt like the next thing I do has to be something that's more for me, that's in line with my passion and my purpose. And that's ultimately why I started a business in the run industry.
What did day zero look like? Yeah, what did day zero look like when you decided like this is it? This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So day zero, I would almost call it like day -5, because day zero, there was already an idea and a plan to move forward as far as starting the business. Before that, one of the things that I was thinking about was finding a great partner. My lighting company that I spoke about, I did it with a friend at the time that we ultimately became business partners, and we're very fortunate in the sense that like through the entire journey, we were together, we were brothers locked in arms, and this is somebody who was my best man at my wedding, somebody who I care about deeply, and so we felt like we were in the trenches together. And so there's some people, they love being a solo entrepreneur. They're the man, the woman, they're in charge, they make decisions, and they just kind of go about it. For me, I really like to have somebody that I can bounce ideas off of, somebody I can work together with and kind of stay in the trenches with and fight together. So it's kind of a funny story and somewhat random. I speak Mandarin. I have been a fan of this Chinese YouTube series for a while. It's these two guys. They're actually Americans, and they have what is effectively the largest foreign YouTube series in China. They have something like 30 million fans in China. They're really well known. It's almost like Mr. Beast type of content that they've created and built within China. And so naturally, I was just a fan. I watched all of their videos. They were really entertaining, really fun. And one of the people, his Chinese name was Ben Dan, but his real name is Ben. I was like somewhat infatuated with this guy because I just thought he was really cool and clearly very talented at what he does. And so a few years ago, I found his email off of his website, and I just kind of sent him a cold email. And it turned out he was living in LA at the time. And then we started chatting, and then one thing led to another, and we became friends. But it was one of those things I always felt that he'd be a great business partner, really talented, somebody I highly respect. And not only does he understand video content and marketing, he's really a jack of all trades, but he's really good at product development too, and just really sharp guy. And so we started chatting about this idea, and the idea was effectively custom insoles. And, he basically said, sign me up. I think it's awesome. And so he became my partner. And it was very much, a serendipitous situation because day -5 was I have the partner that I've wanted to work with for a while. And then it was really kind of iterating on what does that business need to look like to be successful.
So from there, what do you do? And the reason I ask that is I think a lot of people listening to this are entrepreneurial in spirit and often needing to explore how to break out of stasis. But I was one of those people. I listened to Second Nature, and specifically hearing certain stories like allowed me to push on and make a change. So I love hearing about like what it actually took or what it actually looked like to move forward. What did you do first after you had your business partner?
Yeah. Well, so real quick, because I think it's quite important when choosing a business partner, there's a few things that I look for. And I think that for anyone that's looking to become an entrepreneur and thinking about bringing on a business partner, they should also make some of these considerations. One is you want to make sure that this person is fully committed to the journey. Sometimes they say, yeah, like in spirit, I really, really want to become an entrepreneur. And then, when the tire hits the road, they're committed to a lot of different things. They're going off in different directions, and like they're not really ready to commit for the journey. So that would be one thing to make sure, is that like if they're going to say yes, they're all in. The second thing is you really want to find somebody with complementary skill sets. You want to find somebody that, if you're really good at marketing, you would hope that they're also going to be able to help around the, call it, product management or supply chain or manufacturing. Because once you are both in the same realm and working together, it's really hard to distinguish, where one person's job starts and where the other person's job begins. So really important to make sure that is locked in. And then the third is just kind of a fit. Do you like spending time with this person? Do you like iterating with this person? A lot of times you find somebody who's convenient, but ultimately they're going to hold you accountable. They need to hold you accountable. So you want to make sure that you have the right person who can kind of meet those criteria. As it relates to kind of once you have the partners, and sometimes you have the idea first and then the partner second. We had kind of both going at the same time. We didn't necessarily know exactly how we were going to go to market, but it was pretty clear. Ben is also a runner. When it came to running in orthotics, this is something that I'd gotten injured a lot as a kid, in high school, in college. So I always ran in orthotics. They were, fit by a podiatrist. It always felt somewhat like a knee brace. It's just a kind of a necessary thing I had to handle or take care of, taking the insoles out or the orthotics out, putting them in different shoes. It wasn't like a fun, exciting experience. And when kind of navigating the run industry, which is where I kind of pinpointed I wanted to focus, it was pretty clear that, creating a run bag or a garment or even a shoe didn't make any sense. I mean, everything else is kind of a red ocean. Everything's been there. Everything's been done, or anything that could be done has already been done. If you want to build something that's technological or technology related, it also would require a very significant amount of capital and potentially like IP. So wanted to find something that kind of would marry the two. And ultimately, my question that I'd posed to many people throughout the years was, why do orthotics suck so much? Why are they heavy? Why are they so hard? Why are they kind of so boring? When I recognize that there is a benefit. They help you when you're, overcoming an injury, but they also help to prevent injuries. But the problem is that every insole or custom orthotic is basically the same, in the sense that they do distinguish between, running versions and maybe pickleball versions and obviously ski, but like they're all pretty much, it's hard. You wouldn't look at one and say, oh, this one is specific for running. This one is specific for a different sport. Whereas like, you look at a shoe, exactly what the shoe is for. It's a running shoe, it's a tennis shoe. And so I felt like there'd be a great opportunity to iterate on this technology and this product that really hasn't changed much in the last 25 years. And Ben felt the same way. And so we kind of started working on finding what the next generation of the best insole in the world would look like.
All right. So you decide that this is where you're going to play, that the current option for orthotics kind of sucks, and or custom insoles kind of sucks, or definitely sucks, and you're going to be the one to make it interesting. As somebody who's gone through the experience of using the product itself, the ability to do it at home with your iPhone was really cool. And the user experience of going through the app and taking a picture of my foot with my phone and then having a product show up that's based on that was cool. And it feels good. So I've mostly been using it for walking around, and it definitely helps. I wore those shoes for a day where I was on my feet for many hours and felt great. So how does it work? How do you get a product out of your iPhone?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. When it comes to getting orthotics fit, usually you go through a podiatrist. They require you to either step into what they call a crush box, or they have a system where you kind of stand on a scanner and then they do a full-on analysis. If you go to like Roadrunner Sports, they also have something similar. There are a lot of running specialty stores where they will fit you for custom orthotics or custom insoles. When it comes to shoes in general, this is something that a lot of people, they can grasp the concept of. Your shoes are not made for you. Somebody at Nike designs a shoe, and they couldn't possibly make a bunch of different versions of the same shoe. And so what they ultimately do is they find a fit that they hope will work for most people, but it's not really meant specifically for you. And uh, people's feet are very different. Where you, first of all, a lot of people's feet length, it's a half a size difference. You pronate differently from one foot to the other. Where arch hits is different. We like to say that your feet are siblings. They're not identical twins, and you're wearing shoes that were not built for you. And in a lot of cases, it's fine, but there is something to be said for being able to lock in and effectively neutralize your balance every time your feet are hitting the ground. And so the goal was, how do we get people in custom insoles in such a way that it's as seamless and painless as possible, as opposed to having to go and meet with a specialist, or stepping into a foot box online where they send it to your home. And so we started to develop this app where we realized that the Face ID camera, which is effectively using LiDAR, it's, first of all, the face is the same size as the foot, so it's a perfect use case. But just in the same way that like identical twins cannot unlock each other's phone because it's really measuring the depth, and face depth is always different. The interesting thing is that it somehow became a great use case for being able to scan your feet, because it really can measure the depth perfectly down to the millimeter.
That's pretty cool. So you decided to do this. You developed the app. You developed the product itself. I'm working with a brand that called Avelo, and they're launching this month. And they have a shoe with basically a chip inside that's evaluating gait and stride and motion and force and breakdown in form. And they also have an app that is powering insights related to your running and your injury risk and whatnot. So the reason I bring it up is they're doing hardware and software at the same time, and it's fairly difficult to do one or the other. You've chosen,
Yeah.
I mean, you have an app, and maybe that's not the core use of the brand, but you have an app and you have a physical product. How did you go about iterating and building both at the same time?
Yeah, well, the great news is that the technology on 3D printing has come very far in a very short period of time. Even 2 years ago, 3D printers were extremely expensive, extremely slow. The materials that are used that we print today now are significantly better than what was available just a few years ago. And so what we're able to do today in terms of pushing the technology forward is create this interesting app using the Face ID camera. And thank you, Apple, for inadvertently giving us the perfect foot scanner. And then designing the perfect insole specific to you, and then printing out that insole with the best materials that are on the market, and using a 3D printer to build it very quickly. And then with the top cover as well, the technology has also come very far. And so not only will these products help to reduce injury, but at the same point, we're using this material called ATPU, which has really interesting bounce back energy return properties. And so when you land, you'll feel this incredible bounce that I would almost equate it to like a super shoe, which is very reactive. And because we're 3D printing this very special, very unique material, we're able to create what is effectively the lightest insole on the planet. It's actually about 30 grams, which equates to the same weight or similar weight to what you'd have in the shoe with that sock liner, that floppy sock liner that you use take out when you buy the shoes. So we're really seeing great results, and people aren't just wearing them when they're injured. They're wearing them because they see that this is optimizing their runs. This is making them actually perform better, and reducing a lot of the pressure off of the joints and up the chain. We've had a number of really fantastic athletes perform extremely well and race in them. And we're pretty proud to say Anthony Costales, who is a great ultra runner, who ran Black Canyons with your shirt. He came in second place, and for him, our insoles are an essential piece of gear. And another athlete that is using our product, swears by them, is Tom Evans, who won UTMB last year, and you could argue is the face of the sport. And so we have a number of podium winners and people who are very elite who are not just using them because it feels good, but they're using them because they recognize that there's a performance boost that they're getting, which is for us what we wanted to create when we set out, building this business.
A variety of different ways to go to market with a performance-oriented product, right? You can work with influencers, you can work with athletes, you can work with races, podcasts, newsletters. Like you've decided, at least to some degree, that the validation of elite athletes deciding, my performance matters, and this is a tool that helps me maximize performance. That seems to be a path that is making sense. How did you come to that decision? Are there other components of the go-to-market strategy that you considered and tested? How did you land there?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to insole, it's not the sexiest category. People don't necessarily, wake up and say, "I want to buy insoles," if they don't have to. So
not yet, they don't. For me, they haven't met you
not yet. That's right. And hopefully after today, they're thinking, I might as well give them a try. But yeah, as it relates to strategy, go-to-market strategy, I would much rather build an authentic brand where people say, based on what their claims are, it's very clear that they're able to back it up. And so a lot of times, you're on Instagram or in social media and you see this is a paid ad, this is sponsored post by XYZ. And like, there isn't that believability because you know that the relationship is, purely, paid. So for us, getting the top mountain athletes on the planet using our product was more important than anything else. And that's where over the last year, our primary focus has really just been on introducing ourselves to the best athletes, showing them that this is a secret that they should be incorporating not just in their daily runs, but actually in their race shoes as well. And, we had this idea that this would work and that people would adopt it. And we were, of course, met with, a bit of rejection when we first started speaking with people. Not everyone is an insole user, and so people didn't necessarily believe that this was going to help them perform better. But we are working with probably 50, 60 different professional ultra runners right now who are using the product. We're shipping the product out on call it a quarterly basis. And so this has really become a thing. And we believe this is a new category. So if you are into gear and you're into optimizing and you want to go faster and stay healthy, it's a really great idea to utilize a top flight custom insole to help you perform better.
I've spoken a lot about trust as the primary vehicle for growth of companies at this point. There's so much noise and so many things competing for our attention right now. And if you open Instagram, it's like half food and dogs and babies, and the other half is full of ads. And so we're just bombarded with information and overloaded with decisions to make. So how do you double down on the trust piece as you look to continue to grow?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's all about building the brand. That's sustainability. You see all these kind of flash in the pan businesses come and go, and there's a lot of people who sell courses. This isn't necessarily related to run, but they'll teach you how to become a social media influencer, how to get rich quick, and they blow through their audience really quickly over call it a few months time, and then after everyone who's bought the product has bought the product, or everyone who would potentially buy the product has acquired the product, they die because the sales fall off a cliff, and that's the end of it. Whereas we believe that building an authentic brand with solid culture, where we care about the individuals, we care about the partners that we're working with, and really build something that can stand the test of time, and within the running community is seen as authentic and genuine. This is the key. And so I would argue that we most likely in the first year, we had to forego a lot of easy sales, low hanging fruit, in order to really come to the market with credibility and build something where people feel like, oh, these guys are going to stay around or are going to stick around, because clearly if they're working with the best in the planet on the planet, then they're doing something right. And someone like Tom Evans isn't going to work with some random company. He's going to make sure that they're properly vetted and it's not like you can just knock on the door and all of a sudden you're working with someone like Tom. So for us, that was why it was so important to build this authentic brand on day one.
And then what happens? Do you stick with the pro athlete model? Is it really just like then you build engagement at events with the athletes and you double down on leveraging the people that you've partnered with, or does the aperture open up from there and layer in different types of properties?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to building a business, you need to figure out what is the cost to acquire the customer, and then what is the gross profit dollars over the lifetime of the customer, and then from there, just kind of breaking it down from like a marketing tactical perspective. From there, you want to make sure that your spend is justifiable based off of those numbers. If you're upside down at some point, you're going to need to continue to raise money because you're effectively killing your cash flow and your runway as well. For us, we really wanted to make a product that after you put it in your shoes, you said, "Holy crap, this is amazing," and you tell all your friends. The same way in which, like, if you go biking and you buy a great carbon fiber bike, call it Bentham, top end product, you're showing it off. You're telling your buddies in the bike peloton. You're saying, "This is amazing. I'm really enjoying it." And so we really wanted to create this halo effect. And so that's why the R&D function, making sure we had locked in the right product, was more important than anything else. Because I could easily have a guy in a doctor's white coat telling you why this is the best product in the world. But I think for many people, that, yes, gets some sales, but we don't want to like feel like we're manipulating somebody or like convincing them based off of just like voodoo science. We want to make sure that they see, okay, the best people in the world are using them and they're not injured and they're doing it for performance reasons. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And so, I mean, that can be connected to, other industries and other products in terms of, adopting that strategy. Whereas a lot of times, especially when people raise a bunch of money and they want to show sales, they'll go after that low hanging fruit and really kind of cheapen the product, just because they know that if they can show that they're generating sales, that will help them get to that next stage, that will help them continuously raise money. And for us, that's not important. The most important thing is that we are building an authentic brand and the top people in the world are racing in our shoes, our insoles.
Is some of that, are you bootstrapping and self-funding, and that's giving you the flexibility to do that? Is that what, I mean, there's a benefit to that?
Yeah, we are self-funding the business, and we are, whereas my first business, the lighting company, there was a high urgency to generate as many sales as possible, because once we ran out of money, I was with my resume, dead, knocking on doors, looking for a job. Or I'd much rather take the time to build the right company the way that I want to, knowing that the sales will come later if we're able to execute on the plan.
I've seen numerous times the influence of VC or private equity on a small brand, and it's a necessary function to some degree, right? In order to accelerate a company or keep a company alive or help this company access more people and fulfill their mission. At the same time, I've been at a company where venture funds led to decisions that maybe wouldn't have been made outside of that funding model. And so I don't want to say it's a necessary evil, because like there are plenty of great VCs and many of them listen to this show. So I'm not trying to speak ill of the job, though some of them deserve it. Obviously not the people listening to this show, but what's your take on the angels versus VC versus private equity and how to build a business when you're not able to write the first check or the second check or the third check?
Yeah, it's a great question. When it comes to the investor base, one of the challenges that a lot of entrepreneurs have is that they go out and they pitch and they are just selling. They're delivering the dream and explaining, what the business is going to look like 5 years, 10 years from now. And I think the challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs face is they don't necessarily interview the potential partner that they're talking to. They're basically saying, I'm going to do X and then I'm going to deliver Y and you're going to make Z. And it's not as formulaic in the sense that you want to make sure that that partner understands this is critical. This is like table stakes. They understand what it is you are planning to do. And then they obviously need to have the patience to understand that it's going to take longer than you're probably expecting. I think that there's a funny quote that says, more fiction has been written in Excel than in PowerPoint, which is absolutely the case. I can tell you from all the companies I've invested in, it's very rare that somebody can beat their forecast. However, it's really important to understand what it is about that potential partner is compelling for them as far as your company. And so if it's a VC, if it's an angel, if it's a PE fund, you want to really understand what their intention is, because when it comes to capital, when it comes to the relationships they can provide, they're all relatively similar in the sense that, maybe a venture fund, they need to see an exit in 10 years, whereas an angel maybe is okay with just kind of receiving dividends over time, and you don't necessarily have the pressure to create a liquidity event. But really understanding what their expectations are, why they would invest, this will unlock a lot of potential anxiety and challenges that doesn't necessarily need to be there, because you can quickly discern whether they would be the right partner for you. In the beginning, if you don't have great relationships and you really need that capital to get started or get to that next level, you don't really have a choice, especially if you have payroll to make. So it's just a function of who's going to give me the best terms and be able to quickly turn around and provide me the capital. But ultimately, I do think that being able to understand why it is those people would invest and what their intention is and how they can help, that's very, very important. I don't think you need to think about, oh, I need to go with a PE fund, I need to go with a venture fund, I need to go with an angel. It's all kind of the same thing in the sense that they're capital providers, and I would really look from a case-by-case basis.
What role do you think this has in the outdoor industry, and what's the opportunity in this space? I spoke to a guy who runs a PE fund. The owner of the fund is a billionaire, and they're deploying $10 million or more on the low end. He's like, can I play in this space? He's a runner. And I'm like, there aren't that many outdoor brands that are able to take a $10 million check without it being the entirety of the business. What role do you think these different capital providers can play in the space?
That's a great question. Not just capital providers, you also have a lot of really large legacy businesses that have very significant balance sheets, and they're investing too into the space. So it's really great to see that there's so much capital coming into the outdoor industry, and it speaks to the growth that we've seen over the last really 20 something years. Whereas before it was a really small category, and now it's huge. You can see it from attending all the trade shows and seeing all the SKUs that all these brands are launching, and the new entrants that are coming in day to day. When it comes to, kind of going back to your previous question, a venture fund is looking for venture returns. They want something like 50x. And if you're not able to create 50x, and maybe you could build a nice $10 million a year business, but to them, that's not interesting at all. And so if that capital that's coming in today, your buddy with this, $10 million check minimum, if his expectation is that $10 million check is going to become $150 million in the next, 5 to 10 years, he or she is going to have a lot of trouble, because, it's not tech and building a consumer brand. Of course, there is technology in the space too, but building a consumer brand is a totally different animal, and it's going to take a lot longer, and the odds are very high that you're going to fail. So I do think that seeing the capital coming into the space is fantastic, but I do think that capital is going to be chasing a very small amount of high quality deals, whereas there's a lot of new competitors coming into the space. But for every Nike, there are 1,000 sock companies who are entering in today, who are going to die within the next couple of years. And so should we be giving them the startup capital to really grow and try to be successful? I see yes, I say yes. I think that's a net positive for the space because it hopefully will help to keep everyone on their toes and kind of make people differentiate themselves. Because if you rest on your laurels, obviously, you're going to see growth stagnate.
Do you think that that lends to a really strong or a better opportunity for angels and family offices versus venture capital?
100%. If you're looking for venture returns, the outdoor industry is probably not the place to be investing. Whereas if you have that patient capital, you are willing to work with entrepreneurs who, not to say aren't focused on generating 1,000x, but you have a lot of people in the space that are really passionate about run. And whereas if you were to build like a B2B SaaS business or an AI business, those people, they care about the products that they're building. But at the end of the day, if you are in the run space, you're self-selecting, and most likely it is you're a runner yourself. And so investing in these types of entrepreneurs is great because the passion is there, the purpose is there. But ultimately, like myself, you want to build the right business at the right time and the right speed. Whereas when you put that time pressure on to grow for the sake of growth, it could really have a very adverse impact on the company, their kind of future state. And a lot of people in the running space will recognize that as you having a company where the intention is just to generate money and to grow, as opposed to really doing something for the people and the runners, which ultimately is the most important thing.
How do you think about your own investments in the space and the time you spend working with deploying your own capital and partnering with founders who are chasing their own passion and desired outcomes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when it comes to early stage, it's the jockey, it's not the horse. It's very, very rare that somebody says, I'm going to do X, and then they actually execute on that. It usually looks a little bit different once they start to build their product and build their service, or really going to grow the team. So like you really need to find somebody who's able to optimize for experimentation, adaptability, resilience. And for that, it's really the person, not the company that they're building. Theoretically, the person will be able to figure it out and iterate and improve and find the right strategy and go to market and make an awesome business. With late stage, it's a little bit different just because there are numbers, historical numbers, there are customers, there are reviews. You can get the voice of the customer. You can really fully dive deep into the brand and recognize, what are the execution risks that need to be considered. And there's also the valuation, which, of course, early stage valuation is usually a little bit rich given where, companies are. However, you have a lot more, your ability to benchmark a established company is much better as far as being later stage and understanding, do they trade off of a multiple of revenue or EBITDA, and how do the peers in their space compare. So I would say when it comes to later stage, the most critical thing, or the two most critical things, one is moat. So why is it that customers are buying versus the competition? And if it looks like you have a better mousetrap, that may not be enough, because the day that somebody comes out with the better mousetrap, you might be in a very challenging environment. And then the other thing is just execution. So not just the entrepreneur, the team is critical. Are they going to stay on for the long term? And what does execution risk look like? Those are some of the really important factors you need to consider when making investments.
You mentioned a couple of times about the high failure rate of startups and early stage businesses, yet you're drawn to this entrepreneurial spirit. Why do you think that is?
I just love building. It's just so fun. It's you're in this very ambiguous environment. You kind of feel like a pirate. You're a modern day pirate, which I absolutely love. You're looking for treasure. You have a map. The map could change. You don't know if the map is right, and you don't know in terms of your resources how long they'll last for. If you're gonna die at sea, or if your parrot's going to fly away, or you're gonna have a peg leg. But it's the adventure, it's the excitement, and it's not for everybody. But a lot of people who are kind of working in established businesses, they have this, dream, and they really want to start their own business, and it's like a romantic thing. But I would advise that uh, if you're looking to start your own business, make sure that you have the stomach and the kind of ability to really fully commit for the long term. If you don't, that's okay, because you can join an earlier stage business. Maybe you're taking a pay cut. Maybe you are advancing your a career from a title perspective, but you get to be part of a early stage team, which means, you're making a very significant impact over the future of the company. You're taking out the trash, you're doing whatever is necessary, you're getting your hands dirty. So it's kind of like a good marriage of the two.
I've been number 2. I've been number 8. Yeah, at the time I couldn't stomach being number 1. And both were fascinating experiences. In the first role, it was are we paying for postage or paying for electricity this month kind of a thing? And what else can we kick down the road to next month? And then as the number 8, it was like, how many times can we almost die before we stay, get into a healthier standpoint. And you learn a lot from these challenging moments and from seeing what goes on behind the scenes, where, the customers think the company is rolling along nice, and, you're stitching it together behind the scenes.
Totally. I mean, I'm surprised my LED lighting business was able to thrive. The amount of bad decisions we made, the amount of times we inadvertently almost killed the business, the amount of times that we almost missed payroll. You would really expect, if I were to tell you all of the crazy things that happened, that like there's no way that this business was successful. But yeah, that's part of the reason why so many people are attracted to startups, because it's that excitement in the disorganization, the fun in really choosing your own adventure.
What does success mean to you?
Success in what sense?
Yes.
Yes. So like personal or professional, what do you think?
Yeah, let's go professional. Yeah. So this is a business podcast. We'll go professional.
Success is building a business that can outlive me and be very sustainable as it relates to building a brand and having people identify with wanting to associate themselves with the company. So that's, to me, the most important thing about building a business is really building something for the long term. It's not about profit or valuation. The team is important too, building a fantastic team and making sure that they're taken care of for the effort that they put in. But yeah, ultimately something that is built for the long term and durable. That's success to me. On the personal side, I mean, it's all about family and making sure that you have the time that you can commit to being with your partner and being a good father to your children.
What has to be true for your brand for it to be successful? And by the way, you haven't said the name of it, so tell everyone the name.
Kila. The name is Kila, Kila, and the website is kilarun.com. So yeah, thank you for calling that out. So wait, the question is,
what has to be true for Kila Run to be successful?
We need to have the top runners on the planet using our product. That's it. I mean, it sounds crazy, but we know that if everybody who is a professional runner and cares about going faster, whether it's in mountain sports, outdoor sports, or even on road, then we've succeeded, because we know we've created a product that has demand. Because if it's good enough for the best, it's good enough for anybody. Very similar strategy that was deployed with like the original 4% that came out with Kipchoge. We are running a very similar playbook.
It also reminds me of the playbook we ran at Insight Tracker from 2016 through 2019, right? We had every single pro trail runner using our platform, and we weren't yet in a position to pay, but we were providing a service that retailed at $2,000 a year for quarterly access. And we had the best of the best using it, and community became our moat. And people, to your point earlier, I meant to mention it then, but it was so impactful for people's careers that they were telling all of their friends and their social followers, because they were like, this has helped me so much. And this was before everybody, could slap a label on Quest, and before AI existed. And so it was like a truly novel process and experience back then, and it was very transformational for these people's careers. And so for us at that time, what had to be true was the exact same thing. We had to have everybody who was telling their story on Instagram and chasing podiums using our program and using it to improve their health and performance. It seems like over time that's kind of ebbed and flowed in the, focus on performance versus the focus on influencers. But to your point, for a product that improves performance, the validation of the top athletes in the world is quite meaningful. And yeah, I love the playbook.
Thank you. I mean, one thing that I see a lot of brands doing when it comes to like ambassadors and influencers is they hope that their micro influencers and their call it anything Instagram as it relates to like social media, they hope that those people are able to really drive sales because they believe in the product. But to your point, what you said earlier, which really struck me, you open up Instagram, you see a lot of people selling wares, you see
stuff,
so much stuff that if somebody is saying, hey, I use this product, it's awesome, and they're just some random Joe Schmo or some influencer with a big following, you don't necessarily care. Whereas like when it comes to somebody with credibility that you respect, it's a very different story, because if it's good enough for that person, it's going to be good enough for you. But that being said, I do think that it's important to have influencers using your products too. But the way that I would utilize them from a call it strategy perspective is I would almost have them kind of reflect fire, meaning I only want them talking about Tom Evans. I want them talking about Anthony Costales. I want them commentating on why it is these people, these professional runners are using the product, not necessarily why they use the product.
That makes a lot of sense. How did you get to that?
Well, you work with some influencer, you pay them $1,000, they make a few posts, a story, and then it generates no sales.
Nothing.
And they say, you want to go again? And they say, no, I don't. So like, it's about experimenting and figuring out what works and what doesn't. But like when it comes to social media, the only way you can get somebody to pay attention is you have to serve them something they've never seen before. That will stop the scroll. If they've seen it before, if they've heard it before, they're not stopping. So however you can get them to stop, and you have 3 seconds in that hook, and really it's 1 second, but like you have to hook them within the first 3 seconds or they're gone. And just deploying that same strategy of I'm going to work with this person's going to talk to their audience and their audience is going to generate sales. That works never.
I just did a podcast with Rachel Friedline, who's the founder of Wilder Dog, which is a dog apparel company.
That's
and
cool.
Talk about stopping the scroll. Like her business is reliant on cute pictures of dogs. And it's like, this is a freaking cheat code. And so like I'm about to post tomorrow a picture of Oscar in a harness or in a collar of theirs. And I'm 100% certain that it's going to be my most engaged photo since the last time I posted a photo of him. And so like, yes, there are these cheat codes, or there are these things you can do that will stop the scroll. And if you have a business that is unique in that way, that it manifests that every time, you've got a strong moat there.
For sure. Dogs and kittens, that's definitely a hack.
Cole, this has been a blast. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience today?
If you want to reach out to me, go right ahead. My email is cole@kilarun.com. And as I mentioned, Ben, who is my partner, he is incredible as it relates to product. And if you look at the site, he did that, he developed that. And a lot of the really interesting, visuals and the marketing he's also focused on. So if there are any questions you have as it relates to like our go-to-market strategy, our product development, our website, anything specific to design, I'm sure Ben would be happy to chat too. Just reach out to me, and I would also connect you to him if it makes sense.
I have one more question. How do you use AI to help your business?
Well, I mean, similar to everybody, chatbot is something I'm using day in, day out. But also, I have been utilizing Claude for financial modeling. It's so cool. I became a professional financial modeler, but I'm not actually like coding anything. So, you just prompt and say, this is what I want to build. The other use is in building decks, which are, important to some of the things that we're doing. And then there are plugins within Claude for legal, where it can redline documents, which is just kind of insane how that works. If you have any things that you need to negotiate on, there are also some plugins within Claude that will help to really kind of make sure that you're getting the best deal, and it does a lot of the legwork. So that's kind of the areas where we're using the most amount. I'm using the most amount of AI day to day. The other thing is, as it relates to our design, as it relates to our insoles, a lot of the design we're now incorporating is actually using AI as well, as opposed to a human technician who's effectively cutting your foot and turning it into a designed insole.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to start asking this question more, because I find that people are either using it and using it well, or they're not, and they're totally missing the boat. And to your point, like, Claude is way better, in my opinion, than ChatGPT. Use code Long Run Labs to get nothing off at Claude besides a better model. I did reach out to them to see if we could get a partnership going, but
that'd be cool.
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing that you can even like ask it, how should I use, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, how do you advise using this tool? And
yes.
And the thought partner aspect of it is like transformational.
Yeah, I mean, you can also ask it, how am I doing as a CEO? And like compare me to others, and what are the things that I can do to improve based on all the things that I've discussed. So you can say, based on what your job is, how am I doing? And it will tell you.
You are a CFO, you are a chief of staff, you are a blah, blah, blah. Evaluate this. One thing that I've been doing is telling it anything that I do that's repetitive and asking if it can automate it.
Yes.
And so I've just been building in systems that I don't have to do anymore. And it's not like it's taking things that are just meaningless, pressing on the keyboard, and letting me use my brain more on other tasks. So yeah, highly recommend exploring that, and even do the paid version at $20 a month at a minimum, because the paid model is so much better than the free model.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the other thing I would say is Grok. I've had a lot of success with, and partially they key into X, and there's a lot of signal on X. And so if you want to get the voice of the customer or see how things are performing within just kind of the general market, they can capture that in a way that some of the other AIs can't. So that's been one of the kind of the hacks that I've been utilizing as well.
Love it. Cole, this has been a blast. Appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise with the audience, and hope we can share some miles at some point this year.